Happiness is a lie, at least the kind you've been sold. They told you it was in money, in success, in the next vacation, the perfect relationship, the next win. But how many times have you gotten what you wanted and still felt empty? You see, most people aren't unhappy because they failed. They're unhappy because they believed a lie that says happiness is a feeling, a rush, a moment. But feelings fade, pleasure fades, and the high always drops. Real happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you build. Not in what happens to you, but in how you respond. Not in what you gain, but in what you master. This video is not for those who want easy answers. It's for those who are ready to build unshakable peace, the kind that doesn't crumble when life punches you in the face. The kind rooted in discipline, in virtue, in a mindset trained by fire, not comfort. And no, you're not alone. Millions feel the quiet ache of, is this all there is? But few ever stop chasing long enough to find the truth. So if you're done with distractions and ready to reclaim your mind, if you're tired of living on autopilot and you want to build something that actually lasts, then stay. Because what's coming next isn't hype, it's Stoic truth, and it will change the way you see everything. Let's begin. 1. True happiness isn't about feeling good, it's about inner peace that can't be shaken. Happiness that depends on how you feel is a fragile kind of happiness. One bad day, one missed call, one shift in mood, and it's gone. That's not happiness. That's emotional addiction. And most people are hooked. They believe happiness is found in comfort, in excitement, in that fleeting dopamine hit. They spend their days chasing highs and their nights wondering why they still feel hollow. But the truth is simple and sharp. You don't need to feel good all the time. You need to feel unshakable when things fall apart. This is where Stoicism cuts through the noise. It doesn't offer feel-good affirmations or fake positivity. It offers clarity, stability, inner peace that's not built on circumstances, but on perspective and self-command. You see, feelings lie, they shift with the wind. One compliment and you're up. One insult and you're wrecked. When your peace depends on mood, people, or results, you're not free. You're a slave to what you cannot control. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, but he also endured betrayal, plague, and endless war. And yet, his words echo with calm, with strength, with stillness. Not because life was easy, but because his mind was trained. Real happiness begins when you stop outsourcing your peace. When you stop waiting for something or someone to fix what's inside you. It begins when you realize you don't need perfect days to feel whole. You just need a mind that doesn't break every time life doesn't go your way. But that kind of peace isn't automatic. It's earned. It's built in silence, through the daily practice of separating what you can control from what you can't. Your thoughts, your reactions, your discipline. These are yours. Everything else is noise. The modern world wants you distracted. It wants you reactive, scrolling, comparing, buying, chasing. And it's killing your clarity. It convinces you that every inconvenience is a crisis, that peace comes from avoiding discomfort, that more is better, that calm is weakness. And so you live in a constant state of agitation, mentally scattered, emotionally hijacked. But the Stoic flips this entirely. He says, let the world move, I will be still. He does not deny emotions, he studies them, observes them, commands them. He doesn't suppress his anger, he disarms it. He doesn't chase happiness, he builds character. And from that character, peace rises. It's not about being numb, it's about being stable. It's about walking through fire with clarity. About hearing chaos but not letting it touch your core. About losing things but never losing yourself. Real strength is not loud. It doesn't need to shout. It's calm, collected, present. The man who can sit in silence without needing a distraction, he is more dangerous than 1,000 men who rely on pleasure to feel alive. So where do you begin? You begin by watching your mind like a soldier guards a fortress. You begin by stopping the habit of emotional overreaction. Not everything deserves your panic. Not every thought deserves your belief. Not every mood deserves your energy. When something rattles you, stop. Don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what part of me is being disturbed, and why was it so fragile in the first place? That question, simple, brutal, is how you take back power. Because the goal is not to avoid storms. It's to be the one who doesn't shatter when the storm hits. the one who remains composed when others lose themselves, the one who walks into chaos and walks out clearer. This kind of inner peace doesn't make you soft. It makes you dangerously focused. It means you don't waste energy on things that don't move your mission forward. It means your emotions serve your values, not sabotage them. There will always be noise, always be pressure, always be uncertainty. But if your inner world is steady, the outer world can't touch you. So don't chase happiness. Build it, not from what you feel, but from what you control, from the stillness you protect, from the values you live, from the storm you outlast. Because when the world takes everything, the man who has trained his mind still has everything he needs. 2. The more you chase pleasure, the less satisfied you become. There's a reason why the thrill never lasts. Why the moment you get what you wanted, you're already looking for what's next. Why you keep scrolling, keep spending, keep reaching, only to feel emptier than before. That's not failure, that's the trap. The hedonic treadmill, the illusion that pleasure equals happiness. But the more you chase it, the more it escapes you. What once gave you joy becomes normal. What once satisfied you now feels dull, and so you chase harder, you upgrade, you accumulate, you speed up. But no matter how far you run, contentment remains out of reach. Pleasure is not the enemy. Attachment to it is. When your happiness depends on how much pleasure you can gather, your peace becomes fragile. One missed opportunity, one denied craving, and your mood collapses. You become reactive, restless, easy to control. That's exactly what the modern world wants. A man who is always reaching, never resting, always hungry, never grounded. Pleasure becomes the bait, consumption becomes the habit, misery becomes the outcome. The Stoics saw this clearly. They didn't reject pleasure, they just refused to serve it. They knew that pleasure without discipline leads to dependence, and dependence leads to weakness. They chose a different path, a harder one, but one that built strength, stability, resilience. Because they understood this truth. Pleasure fades, peace grows. Choose the one that lasts. Every time you get what you want and still feel unsatisfied, that's not a sign you need more. It's a sign you need to go deeper. You don't need another drink, another distraction, another dopamine hit. You need clarity. You need purpose. You need something pleasure can never give you, meaning. Chasing pleasure leads you away from yourself. It distracts you from the work that matters. From the inner development that builds character, from the stillness that creates clarity. And that's exactly why it's so addictive. Because it keeps you numb, comfortable, distracted, and a distracted mind cannot grow. But once you understand this, you become dangerous, because now you can choose. You can pause, you can say no. Not out of self-denial, but out of self-respect. You stop chasing what fades and start cultivating what lasts. You stop feeding cravings and start feeding character. This doesn't mean you need to reject joy. You can still enjoy good food, beautiful moments, deep connection, but now you enjoy them without clinging to them, without needing them, without letting them define your peace. Pleasure becomes a guest, not your master. It visits, it leaves, and you remain unchanged. This is where strength begins. When you can delay gratification, when you can sit with discomfort, when you can enjoy something without being controlled by it. The man who can say, "I don't need this to feel whole," is the freest man alive. He's not seduced by pleasure. He's not shaken by loss. He is rooted in something far deeper, virtue. Virtue is what grounds you when pleasure vanishes. Discipline is what holds you steady when desire screams. Inner peace is what remains when all external rewards are stripped away. That's the kind of happiness the Stoics pursued, and it's the only kind that cannot be taken from you. You've been told to pursue what feels good, but feelings lie. They're temporary, unstable, easily manipulated. True power is not in how good you feel, but in how well you hold your ground when you don't. Anyone can feel happy when life is easy, but how do you show up when it's not? The man who lives for pleasure is always at the mercy of the world, but the man who builds peace from within, he becomes the master of his world. He can enjoy what comes without fearing its loss. He can lose what he has without losing who he is. That's not detachment, that's self-command. This is why the Stoics trained their minds, not just their habits. They rewired their thinking, they practiced gratitude. Not because life was always good, but because their perspective made it so. They focused on what they could control. They accepted what they couldn't. They stopped needing life to be perfect. and started focusing on becoming stronger than whatever it brought. And that's the shift, from chasing pleasure to choosing growth, from consuming to becoming, from escaping life to engaging it fully, wisely, with clarity. You begin to see pleasure for what it is, a moment, not a destination, a bonus, not a requirement. So next time the urge comes, the craving, the distraction, the itch to escape, pause. Ask yourself, will this bring peace or just a pause in my discomfort? Will this make me stronger or more dependent? Am I moving toward who I want to become or away from it? Because every choice shapes you. Every indulgence weakens or strengthens your mind. Every chase either leads you further into noise or brings you back to stillness. And when you finally choose stillness over stimulation, you'll understand something most people never will. You were never supposed to chase happiness. You were supposed to become it. 3. Why choosing virtue is stronger than chasing pleasure. The world respects success, but it remembers character. That's why happiness built on virtue lasts longer than happiness built on pleasure. Pleasure is quick. It's surface. It fades the moment reality interrupts. But virtue, that's carved into who you are. It's who you become when no one's watching, when nothing is guaranteed, when everything's at stake. Chasing pleasure might make you feel good for a moment. Living with virtue makes you feel proud for a lifetime. Virtue isn't about morality or perfection. It's about alignment. It's the quiet power of living in sync with your deepest values: courage, justice, discipline, honesty. It's choosing what's right over what's easy, what strengthens you over what entertains you. When your life is built on these, your peace doesn't collapse when the world does. You stop needing the world to be fair because you know you are. You stop needing everyone to approve because your conscience already does. This is where the Stoics drew the line. They didn't measure life by how much pleasure they had, but by how much they remained true to who they chose to be. Epictetus lost his freedom, Marcus Aurelius lost friends, Seneca lived under threat, but none of them lost their principles. And because of that, they never lost their peace. Because peace, tied to virtue, can't be stolen. This matters because modern life makes pleasure look like power. It glorifies the man who takes shortcuts and gets ahead. It sells you the lie that results matter more than how you got there. But when the lights are off and the show is over, the only thing left is who you've become. And if you've betrayed yourself 100 times just to win, it doesn't feel like winning at all. It feels like shame. It feels like a hollow kind of success. A friend of mine had everything: cars, real estate, 2 businesses, the Instagram lifestyle. From the outside, he was the American dream, but inside he was exhausted. He admitted he hadn't slept well in years. Every deal was another mask. Every success was another hit of validation he needed to stay standing. Then one day, he ghosted everyone. No warning, just vanished. 6 months later, he reached out, said he was in Montana now, living out of a camper. No internet, just working with his hands. I asked him why he walked away from it all. He said, "I realized I built everything around what people wanted to see, but I never once asked myself if that's who I wanted to be." That hit hard, because it's what so many people do. They build careers, relationships, reputations, not on values, but on validation. They chase what looks good, not what is good, and then they wonder why it all feels fake. But the truth is, when you trade your values for pleasure, you always lose more than you gain. The applause never replaces self-respect. Virtue is what grounds you when life tests you, when you're betrayed, when you fail, when you're misunderstood. In those moments, your integrity is either your shield or your shame. The Stoic doesn't fear those moments. He prepares for them. He welcomes them. Because he knows life doesn't build you in ease, it shapes you in fire. And the only thing that lasts beyond the flames is who you are. So how do you live this? Start small. Choose honesty when lying would be easier. Choose patience when reacting would feel better. Choose effort when coasting feels safer. Not because you have to, but because you refuse to let your lower self win. And each time you do, you feel it. That quiet strength, that inner nod, that knowing that you're not just existing, you're becoming. Because you can't fake virtue. You can't outsource it, and you can't download it. It's built moment by moment, decision by decision, in silence, no spotlight, no claps, just you and the man in the mirror. That's where happiness is born. Not in the results, not in the recognition, but in the kind of person you train yourself to be. Pleasure comes and goes, so do people, so do opportunities, but virtue stays. It holds you up when life knocks you down. It makes you dangerous, not because you're ruthless, but because you're grounded, focused, clear. And when a man like that walks into a room, people feel it, because there's a weight to him, a steadiness, a calm that only comes from living with discipline and choosing character, especially when no one's watching. So don't just chase what feels good, chase what makes you proud, because when life strips everything away, and one day it will, the only thing that remains is who you've become. And if you've built yourself on virtue, there's nothing left to fear. 4. Self-discipline, the root of a life you can be proud of. Freedom sounds beautiful until you realize it means nothing without control. Not control over others, control over yourself, over your reactions, over your impulses, over your time. That's the foundation of real power. And that's why self-discipline is not punishment. It's self-respect in action. The world tells you discipline is rigid, exhausting, boring. But look around. The people who lack it are the ones truly trapped. Trapped in chaos, in excuses, in emotional chaos they created but can't escape. A man who wakes up every day doing only what he feels like doing is not free. He's a prisoner of his lowest urges. Self-discipline is the ultimate act of self-ownership. When you say, I will, and follow through, despite discomfort, despite doubt, despite temptation, that's where identity is forged. Not in what you dream about. Not in what you talk about, but in what you do when it's hard. The Stoics didn't romanticize strength. They practiced it every single day. Discipline was the engine behind every decision, not because they hated pleasure, but because they knew peace doesn't grow in comfort, it grows in control. Control your body and you train your mind. Control your time and you sharpen your life. Every routine you stick to, every temptation you resist, every emotion you manage instead of obey. Each is a silent vote for the man you're becoming. And that man, he doesn't live in fear. He doesn't need to explain himself. He shows up. He finishes what he starts. He carries himself with clarity because his behavior is aligned with his values. When your actions reflect your highest self, even when no one is watching, you begin to trust yourself. You stop doubting because you've built evidence. You stop breaking under pressure because you've trained for it. Most people collapse under weight not because they're weak, but because they've never lifted anything heavy. They've never delayed gratification, never said no to their comfort zone, never forced themselves to finish what they start. And so they live fragmented, always chasing motivation, never building momentum. But self-discipline doesn't rely on feelings. It's not about wanting to do the work. It's doing the work until you want the results more than the distraction. That's when discipline becomes identity. When it's no longer about forcing, it's about being. You don't try to be consistent, you are consistent. You don't fight to stay focused, you are focused. And when the world throws noise at you, you stay quiet. Because you've trained in silence, you've trained in stillness, you've trained in hardship. The Stoics understood that without discipline, virtue cannot take root. You can't live with integrity if you crumble every time pressure shows up. You can't grow wisdom if you can't sit in solitude without reaching for escape. You can't lead others if you haven't first mastered yourself. Self-discipline isn't just a habit, it's a shield. It protects your mind from impulses, your time from waste, your life from chaos. You don't need to become perfect, you need to become reliable. Reliable to yourself, reliable to your mission, reliable to the values you say matter. Every time you hit snooze when you said you wouldn't, every time you break your word to yourself, you teach your brain that your word is negotiable. But every time you keep that promise, no matter how small, you reinforce a standard that shapes everything. This is not about control for control's sake. It's about choosing discomfort now so that you don't suffer later. It's about investing effort today so you don't regret tomorrow. It's about removing distractions, not because you hate enjoyment, but because you refuse to be ruled by what's easy. A disciplined life is not rigid, it's intentional, it's focused, it's free. Because real freedom is not doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That leads to chaos. Real freedom is doing what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. And that's not repression, that's leadership. That's maturity, that's emotional control. It's what allows you to show up calm in the face of stress, composed in the face of disrespect, relentless in the face of failure. And that's why most people don't get there. They want clarity without commitment, results without repetition, peace without pressure. But it doesn't work like that. You don't build a stoic mind in comfort. You build it in routine, in resistance, in rising after the 10th failure, in doing what you said you'd do, long after the mood you said it in is gone. If you want a life you can be proud of, don't wait for motivation. Build a system. Protect your time. Guard your focus. Keep your word. And above all, remember this. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you cast a vote for the man who owns his life, and no one can take that from you. 5. Letting go isn't losing, it's reclaiming your freedom. What if you stop needing it to work out? What if you stop needing them to understand? What if you could still be calm, even when life didn't go the way you hoped? Letting go isn't about giving up. It's not weakness. It's not quitting. It's the boldest form of control there is, because it means your peace is no longer held hostage by the outcome. It means your worth is no longer tied to things that can be taken from you. And it means you've finally chosen freedom over attachment. Most people live in a constant tug-of-war between expectation and reality. They hold tight to outcomes, people, timelines, as if letting go means losing everything. But in reality, attachment is the very thing that makes them suffer. They become addicted to how things should be, and every time life dares to disagree, they spiral. Not because life is cruel, but because they refuse to release their grip. What hurts is not what happened. What hurts is what they expected. The Stoics understood this trap. That's why they practiced non-attachment, not as a denial of life, but as a path to clarity. They knew that peace begins when you stop arguing with what is, when you stop demanding that reality fit your script. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply, but you've stopped needing to control what's not yours to command. It means you've chosen to lead yourself, rather than trying to lead the universe. This mindset is powerful because it flips your focus. Instead of obsessing over results, you focus on your actions, your intentions, your clarity. You detach not from effort, but from the need to be rewarded for it. That's the shift. That's where real freedom begins. Because now success no longer controls you. Failure no longer defines you. Other people's opinions no longer own you. It's not easy, but it's essential. Because the truth is, most of your suffering doesn't come from what's happening right now. It comes from what your mind wants to happen and what it refuses to accept. Letting go dissolves that resistance. It opens space for growth. It creates clarity in chaos, and it gives you back the energy you've been wasting trying to hold together what's already gone. Letting go is not an act of indifference. It's an act of wisdom. It's the mind recognizing where its power ends and where peace begins. It doesn't mean you don't care about the outcome. It means your identity doesn't collapse when you don't get it. That shift rewires everything. Your focus sharpens, your anxiety drops, your sense of control returns, not over life, but over yourself. And that's what Stoicism has always been about. Not mastering the world, but mastering your mind. Not erasing emotion, but liberating yourself from emotional dependence. When you no longer crave a perfect outcome, you can finally give your best without fear. When you no longer need approval, you can finally speak truth without apology. When you no longer fear loss, you can finally move with power. You start realizing how much of your life was shaped by fear of losing things you never truly needed. You see how many compromises you made just to keep the illusion of control alive. You remember the nights you lost sleep over things now long gone, and it hits you. Peace isn't earned by gaining more, it's reclaimed by needing less. Letting go removes the noise. It silences the what-ifs. It destroys the illusion that happiness lives in conditions. You become light, focused, present. You stop negotiating with your past. You stop bargaining with your future. And you anchor yourself in the only place you've ever had power, right here, right now. This is why the Stoics could lose everything and remain unmoved, because their identity didn't live in external things. It lived in their reason, in their virtue, in their ability to say, "This hurts, but it doesn't own me." That clarity makes you unstoppable, because you can show up fully, love deeply, fight fiercely, and still release the outcome without losing yourself. So the next time you feel the panic rise, when things fall apart, when life doesn't go to plan, don't ask, how do I fix this? Ask instead, what am I still gripping that I don't need? That question breaks the chain. That question brings you home. Because what's yours to carry, you'll carry with strength, and what's not, you'll finally put down. Letting go is not the end. It's the return to presence, to clarity, to strength. And if you want a kind of happiness that cannot be taken from you, then let go of the need for anything outside you to guarantee it. Because the man who needs nothing is not empty. He is full, with power, with peace, and with the kind of freedom most people will never know. 6. Perspective, the most powerful weapon of the mentally strong. You can't always change your reality, but you can always change the way you see it. That's the difference between being broken and being built. Between staying stuck and moving forward. Perspective isn't just a mindset, it's a weapon. A weapon that, when sharpened, can cut through confusion, fear, and pain, and reveal a path forward even in chaos. The world throws what it wants, but how you interpret it. That's your power. That's where inner peace is born. Not from the outside, but from how you choose to see the outside. Most people don't suffer because of what happened. They suffer because of the meaning they attach to it. One man loses his job and feels worthless. Another sees it as the push he needed to start again. One man gets rejected and crumbles. Another learns. One man fails and gives up. Another rises and refocuses. The event doesn't break you. Your story about the event does. That's why Stoicism doesn't ask you to deny your pain. It asks you to examine how you're holding it, to separate fact from fiction, emotion from truth, noise from signal. The Stoics trained for this every day. Not because they were emotionless, but because they refused to be ruled by false interpretations. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It wasn't a quote. It was survival. Because a mind without perspective is easily hijacked. It reacts to insults, panics in discomfort, and drowns in what-if scenarios. But a trained mind sees clearly, even when the world is fog. That's why reframing is not a soft skill. It's a battle skill. It doesn't mean pretending things are better than they are. It means seeing what's within your control and claiming it, while releasing the rest. It means shifting your question from "why me?" to "what now?" It means seeing failure not as identity, but as information. It means seeing stress not as destruction, but as training. That shift alone, simple, internal, can make the difference between surviving and suffering. My friend James lived this shift. He went through a brutal divorce, lost half his business, and moved into a one-bedroom apartment after living in a custom-built home for years. At first, he resisted everything. The change, the loss, the silence. His mind spiraled in shame and anger. He blamed the system, blamed her, blamed himself, and he got stuck. Until one night, during one of our late calls, he said something different. He didn't say, "Why is this happening to me?" He said, "Maybe this is the first time life is actually giving me space to think clearly." That one sentence changed his energy, not because his situation got easier, but because he stopped seeing himself as the victim. And when that narrative broke, everything else started shifting. Now James runs leaner, works smarter, and lives simpler. His peace isn't built on circumstances. It's built on how he sees them. He traded the illusion of control for the power of clarity. And that gave him back his strength, not through force, but through focus. Because once you stop seeing hardship as personal, you stop being dominated by it. Pain no longer owns you. Pressure no longer defines you. And that's when you begin to move like someone unshaken. Stoic philosophy isn't just theory, it's a system of mental clarity. It teaches you to question the narrative, to slow the story, to ask better questions. What am I assuming here? What part of this am I exaggerating? What am I pretending not to see? Most of the time you're not reacting to reality. You're reacting to the story in your head about reality. That's the source of most suffering, not the thing, but the lens. So shift the lens, catch the thought before it controls you, interrogate it, challenge it, slow down and reframe. That's not weakness, that's strategy. When you do this daily, perspective becomes second nature. And with perspective comes power, the power to stay calm in heat, to respond instead of react, to stand tall when everything around you pulls you down. That's not arrogance, that's mastery. When the world pushes, you don't push back impulsively. You pivot with precision because you've trained your mind to pause, to assess, to stay rooted in what matters. And in that pause, you gain a kind of freedom that pleasure can't offer and pain can't take. You rise above insult, above fear, above distraction. Not because life got easier, but because your eyes got sharper. So the next time something shakes you, stop. Ask, is it the event or the way I'm looking at it? Most won't do this. They'll react. They'll spiral. They'll blame. But you've seen the truth. You know your power isn't in what happens, it's in how you see. And when you protect that perspective, nothing can break you without your permission. 7. Those who choose discomfort don't break when the storm comes. The strongest minds are not born, they are built. And they are built through discomfort. Not the kind that life throws at you by accident, but the kind you walk into by choice. Most people spend their lives avoiding pain. They chase convenience. They protect their comfort zones like a fortress. And then they wonder why they feel weak when adversity shows up. But here's the truth. Comfort is seductive, and it softens you. Discomfort is honest, and it sharpens you. When you choose discomfort daily, you train for the moments that most people collapse under. You build mental resilience the same way you build physical strength, by applying pressure repeatedly and refusing to quit. The Stoics didn't talk about this in theory. They lived it. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men of his time, slept on the floor and ate the simplest meals, not because he had to, but because he wanted to train his mind not to fear loss. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, practiced restraint and simplicity, not indulgence, because both understood a timeless truth. The more comfortable you make yourself, the more fragile you become. The world conditions you to seek ease, easy apps, easy answers, easy dopamine. But Stoicism flips that conditioning on its head. It teaches you to embrace voluntary hardship, to step into the cold, to delay gratification, to endure silence. Because every time you do, you signal to your brain, I don't run from discomfort, I command it. That rewires everything. Now, when real storms come, job loss, heartbreak, rejection, humiliation, you're not shaken, you're already trained. Voluntary discomfort isn't about self-punishment, it's about preparation. It's not about being hard for the sake of being hard. It's about becoming capable, mentally, emotionally, physically, of holding the weight of life. Because life will test you. That's not a threat, that's a guarantee. But the difference between being crushed and being forged is simple. Did you train for it, or did you hope it would never happen? This is where most people get it wrong. They wait for adversity to build them. But when it comes, they're unprepared. Because they've built lives that avoid every challenge. They've traded strength for comfort. And then they wonder why even minor setbacks feel like collapse. But the Stoic doesn't wait. He chooses the hard path now so that he doesn't break later. He sharpens his thinking with stillness. He builds emotional control through fasting, cold, solitude, and struggle. Not because he enjoys pain, but because he refuses to be ruled by the fear of it. When you train your body through discomfort, your mind follows. Cold showers become moments of mental clarity. Waking up early becomes a declaration of self-command. Saying no to instant pleasure becomes an act of self-respect. And through these small daily disciplines, you build a man who can be trusted under pressure. Not just admired when things go well, but steady when things go wrong. Most people think discipline is about motivation, but real discipline is built when motivation is gone. It's built in silence, in discomfort, in repetition. That's why Stoics loved structure, routine, simplicity. Because chaos weakens the mind, but clarity sharpens it. And the clearest path to clarity is walking straight into what others avoid. This isn't about being stoic in name, it's about being stoic in action. And that means rejecting the modern obsession with ease. It means seeking what makes you better, not just what makes you feel good. It means measuring progress not by how smooth the road is, but by how strong you become walking it. The next time you're tempted to take the easy route, pause. Ask yourself, is this helping me grow or just helping me escape? That question alone can reset your direction. Because discomfort is not your enemy, it's your edge, it's your teacher, it's your test. And when you face it by choice, you're not surprised when it returns by force. You will face storms, that's life, but you don't have to be afraid of them. Not if you've trained your mind to endure. Not if you've practiced facing what others fear. Because when adversity comes, it doesn't care how comfortable your life has been. It only cares how strong you've become. And when you become the kind of man who no longer flinches at resistance, who sees pressure as preparation, who embraces discomfort as fuel, you step into a rare kind of freedom. A freedom not given, but earned. Not soft, but solid. Not loud, but lasting. Comfort makes you soft. Discomfort makes you strong. Train accordingly. 8. The power of saying no without guilt. If you can't say no, your life will never be yours. Every yes you give out of guilt chips away at your focus, your freedom, and your peace. People don't steal your time. You hand it to them by avoiding discomfort. You avoid disappointing them, and in the process you disappoint yourself. But here's the truth. The ability to say no without guilt is a superpower. And it's not about rejection, it's about direction. Every time you say no to something misaligned, you say yes to clarity, yes to purpose, yes to the version of yourself you're building with intention. The world will always demand more of you. More time, more access, more energy. If you don't set the boundary, it will keep taking, until there's nothing left of you except resentment. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic doesn't confuse kindness with compliance. He doesn't trade his priorities for approval. He knows peace isn't found in pleasing everyone. It's found in pleasing the right principles. You protect your peace by protecting your energy, and you protect your energy by mastering your decisions. Saying yes to everything doesn't make you generous. It makes you scattered. It makes you tired. It makes you lose sight of what actually matters. Every time you say yes out of fear, fear of missing out, fear of judgment, fear of conflict, you hand your life over to someone else's script. But when you say no with conviction, you reclaim authorship. Stoicism isn't about being harsh or distant. It's about choosing deliberately. It's about refusing to be owned by obligation. The Stoics practiced self-mastery, and that mastery included their time, their thoughts, and their commitments. They didn't owe anyone access to their peace. Neither do you. You don't have to attend every gathering. You don't have to answer every message. You don't have to justify your silence. No is a full sentence. Use it when necessary. This mindset isn't cold. It's clear. It doesn't come from ego. It comes from alignment. Because if you say yes to everything, you betray what you claim to value. Your goals get diluted. Your standards get lowered. Your presence becomes scattered across people, tasks, and noise that don't deserve it. But when you begin choosing with intention, your life becomes focused, sharper, more resilient. Saying no becomes an act of love, to your boundaries, to your growth, to your future self. Let's break it down. Every time you say no to something external that doesn't align, you say yes to something internal that does. You say yes to deep work, to mental stillness, to integrity, to peace, to self-respect. You stop being reactive and start being rooted. And that shift rewires how people treat you. They sense you're not easily pulled, not easily guilted, not easily swayed. That's not arrogance, that's clarity. People may resist your boundaries at first. They're used to access. But boundaries are not walls, they're filters. They don't shut people out, they keep your values in. When you choose your peace over their comfort, you're not being selfish, you're being strategic. You're honoring your mission, not their expectations. And slowly that discipline becomes your armor. Not to isolate, but to focus, to operate with precision, to stop giving your time to what drains you and start giving it to what sustains you. The Stoic sees time not as something to fill, but something to protect. Seneca warned that people guard their money more than their minutes. Yet time is the one thing that once spent never returns. So you must choose with care. Who gets access to your calendar? Who gets your emotional energy? Who gets your attention? These are not small decisions. They shape your entire reality. And every no you say for the right reason builds the life you actually want. You weren't meant to be available to everything. Your phone might be, your inbox might be, but your soul isn't. Your time is not public property. It's a sacred resource. Treat it like that. Not with guilt, with wisdom, with resolve. With the calm strength of someone who no longer fears what people think because they're too focused on becoming who they were meant to be. So next time the request comes, pause, breathe, don't react. Ask, does this align with my values? Or am I just trying to avoid discomfort? If it's the latter, say no. firmly, kindly, without guilt. Because every yes rooted in guilt is a no to yourself. And that's not generosity, that's sabotage. Say no to distractions. Say no to obligations you never agreed to. Say no to anything that costs your peace. Because your peace is not a luxury, it's a foundation. And the more you protect it, the more unshakable you become. Say no, not because you're cold, but because you're clear. Every no to the world is a yes to your deepest alignment. Lasting happiness isn't something you stumble into. It's something you build with clarity, discipline, and daily practice. What you've heard today isn't a list of abstract ideas. It's a path, a way of life shaped by timeless Stoic principles. The modern world may keep shouting louder, chase more, feel good, avoid discomfort. But you now know that real peace doesn't come from comfort. It comes from control. Control of your mind, your time, your values. When you stop tying your joy to external validation, when you stop fearing discomfort, when you let go of what you can't control, something shifts. You become steady, clear, strong. You start showing up not because things are easy, but because you are anchored. Because you've trained your inner world to remain unshaken, even when the outside world makes no sense. Let this not be just another video you listen to and forget. Let it become part of your practice. Speak to yourself differently. Challenge your impulses, embrace discomfort, reframe your setbacks, say no with conviction. These aren't just ideas, they are tools. Use them. Train your mind like you train your body, deliberately, consistently, and with care. Reflect every night. Ask yourself, was I guided by pleasure or by purpose? Did I protect my peace or trade it for approval? The more you ask, the more you grow. And as you walk this path, remember, you're not alone. There are others here, just like you, who are waking up to a deeper kind of strength. So if this message speaks to you, share your journey in the comments below. Tell us what you're practicing, what you're letting go of, or how Stoicism is reshaping your life, because your story could light the way for someone else. And that, right there, is a lasting kind of happiness.